At the baby shower, my girlfriend's sister tried to kiss me. I pushed her away and left. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and she told everyone. He forced himself on me when Dad was in the shower. I was arrested that day, but what Amy didn't realize was that she'd just destroyed the life of someone who had the resources and connections to systematically dismantle her entire family's comfortable existence. My name is Marcus, and at 24, I was already making $78,000 annually as a software developer at TechFlow Solutions, with a promotion to senior developer locked in for the following year that would bump me to $95,000. More importantly, I'd been quietly documenting Amy's inappropriate behavior for months, building what amounted to a comprehensive harassment file. Everyone thought I was just being paranoid about my girlfriend's harmless little sister. The situation with Amy had been escalating for over a year. What started as innocent texts asking about homework had evolved into late-night messages about her relationship problems. She made requests to meet up without Caddy knowing, and increasingly bold attempts to get me alone. I'd shown some of the early messages to Caddy, who laughed it off as a teenage crush. But I'd kept records of everything that followed because my background in data analysis had taught me to recognize patterns and document potential problems before they exploded. The night everything went wrong, I was helping Caddy's father Steve install garage shelving when Amy cornered me in the kitchen while he was showering. She'd set up the whole scenario, claiming her laptop needed fixing, then making her move the moment we were alone. When I rejected her advance and pushed her away, her expression shifted from seductive to calculating in seconds. "You'll regret this," she'd said, and I knew she meant it. But what Amy couldn't have known was that I'd been preparing for this exact scenario. As a software developer specializing in system security, I understood how digital evidence could be fabricated, but I also knew how to protect myself. Every inappropriate text from Amy was backed up in 3 separate cloud storage accounts. Every uncomfortable encounter was logged with timestamps and details. I'd even started carrying a small digital recorder during family events after she'd tried to corner me at Caddy's birthday party 2 months earlier. The fake evidence Amy produced was sophisticated, but not perfect. The forged text messages supposedly from my number contained metadata inconsistencies that a forensic analysis would expose. The photos showing us together were clearly manipulated, with lighting discrepancies and digital artifacts that my technical background allowed me to identify immediately. Most importantly, she'd made a critical error in her timeline that I could prove with my own documentation. When Detective Reynolds interrogated me for 6 hours, showing me printouts of the fabricated messages, I remained calm and analytical. "These messages contain technical inconsistencies that prove they're forged," I explained. "I can provide you with a detailed analysis of the metadata discrepancies, along with my complete phone records showing no such messages were ever sent." But they weren't interested in technical explanations from someone they had already decided was guilty. The charges were devastating, but expected. Sexual assault, electronic solicitation of a minor, and sexual harassment. The $50,000 bail drained my savings, and the conditions were designed to destroy my life. No contact with the Clark family, surrender my passport, wear an ankle monitor, and observe strict curfew. But while everyone saw a young man whose life was falling apart, I was already implementing a strategic response that would systematically expose Amy's lies and hold everyone who enabled them accountable. My first call was to Jennifer Blake, a criminal defense attorney who specialized in false accusation cases. Jennifer wasn't cheap at $450 per hour, but she was exactly what I needed, someone who understood both the legal and technical aspects of digital evidence manipulation. "Marcus, based on what you're showing me, this evidence has clear signs of fabrication," she said during our initial consultation. "But proving that in court requires extensive forensic analysis and expert testimony. We're looking at $75,000 minimum for a proper defense." My second strategic move was hiring Kevin Chen, a digital forensics expert who'd worked with law enforcement on cybercrime cases. Kevin's analysis of Amy's fabricated evidence was devastating to her case. "The metadata timestamps don't align with cellular tower records," he explained. "The image manipulation is apparent under forensic examination. Most importantly, your complete phone records show no outgoing messages to her number during the timeframes in question. This is a textbook case of digital evidence fabrication." But the most crucial element of my defense came from an unexpected source: my own systematic documentation habits. While Amy was creating fake evidence, I'd been building a comprehensive record of her actual behavior, security footage from my apartment building showing her attempting to visit unannounced, screenshots of her social media posts that contradicted her claimed timeline. Most damaging of all, audio recordings from family gatherings where she made inappropriate comments about our relationship in front of witnesses who'd forgotten or chosen to ignore them. The university expelled me immediately, but I'd anticipated this outcome too. I'd already consulted with an education law attorney about wrongful expulsion procedures. The $14,300 in lost tuition would become part of a larger lawsuit that would ultimately cost them far more than they'd saved by rushing to judgment. My former boss at TechFlow fired me via email, but he'd violated several employment law provisions in the process, creating additional legal liability. While my life appeared to be collapsing, I was actually gaining strategic advantages. The ankle monitor and curfew gave me unlimited time to work on my defense strategy. My forced isolation allowed me to focus completely on building an airtight case without social distractions. Most importantly, Amy's overconfidence was leading her to make increasingly bold statements that contradicted her original story. Caddy's cousin Megan became a crucial ally when she reached out with information about Amy's history of fabricating stories for attention. She did something similar to someone else last year, Megan revealed. Made up a story about a teacher harassing her when he gave her a bad grade. The school investigated and found she'd forged evidence then too. This pattern of behavior would become central to our defense strategy. 3 months into the case, Amy made her first major mistake. During a family gathering she thought I couldn't monitor, she bragged about how she'd taught me a lesson for thinking I was too good for her. Megan recorded the conversation on her phone, capturing Amy, essentially admitting that the accusations were retaliation for rejection rather than actual assault. Jennifer immediately filed motions to introduce this evidence, along with Kevin's forensic analysis and my comprehensive documentation of Amy's inappropriate behavior. The prosecution tried to suppress it, arguing that our evidence was obtained illegally or was irrelevant to the current charges. But Judge Patterson allowed most of it under the relevance standard for character evidence. The trial lasted 4 days, but the outcome was determined in the first hour when Kevin presented his forensic analysis. The fabricated text messages were exposed as technically impossible given cellular network protocols. The manipulated photos were revealed as composite images created using readily available editing software. Most devastatingly, Amy's own phone record showed her accessing text spoofing applications at the exact times the fake messages were supposedly sent. Amy's testimony fell apart under cross-examination when Jennifer confronted her with the contradictions in her story. The timeline she'd provided was impossible based on Steve's security camera footage, which showed me leaving the house exactly when I claimed, with Amy visibly angry but completely unharmed. Her claims about the assault continuing into the living room were disproven by the camera's continuous recording of the empty room. When the prosecution's case collapsed on day 3, they offered a plea deal that would have given me 18 months in minimum security. Jennifer advised me to reject it. "They know they can't convict you," she said. "They're trying to save face with a deal that makes them look reasonable while still punishing you for something you didn't do." I turned it down without hesitation. On day 4, the prosecution dropped all charges rather than face the humiliation of a complete trial loss. But my victory was just beginning. Amy was immediately charged with filing false police reports, evidence tampering, and perjury. Despite being 18, her fabricated evidence and systematic deception meant she faced serious adult consequences. 3 years probation, mandatory counseling, 400 hours community service, and $12,500 in restitution to cover my legal fees. The financial aftermath was immediate and brutal for the Clark family. Steve and Diane's marriage collapsed within weeks when Steve discovered Diane had pressured him to support Amy's lies even after he'd started having doubts. The divorce cost them their house and split their retirement savings. Steve moved into a modest apartment and had to take on additional work to afford his portion of Amy's restitution payments. Caddy tried desperately to reconcile, sending dozens of messages apologizing for not believing me and begging for another chance. But 5 years of relationship meant nothing compared to her instant willingness to believe I was capable of sexual assault. "How could you think I would do something like that?" I asked during our one phone conversation. Her response, that Amy seemed so scared and the evidence looked convincing, told me everything I needed to know about her actual opinion of my character. My parents also attempted to repair our relationship, but the damage was permanent. For 9 months, they'd treated me like a potential criminal in their own home. They'd monitored my movements, questioned my accounts of events, and constantly hinted that I should consider pleading guilty to avoid more consequences. Their doubt had been subtle but unmistakable, and trust isn't something you can rebuild with apologies. The university lawsuit took 2 years, but ultimately settled for $185,000 plus restoration of my academic standing. The wrongful expulsion had violated their own policies for due process, and their rush to judgment created significant legal liability. My employment lawyer secured an additional $45,000 settlement from TechFlow for wrongful termination and violation of contractual notice requirements. But the most satisfying victory was watching Amy face the long-term consequences of her false accusations. Her conviction for evidence tampering made her ineligible for most college financial aid programs. Her probation requirements included regular check-ins that interfered with work schedules. Most importantly, background checks revealed her conviction to every potential employer, making it nearly impossible to find anything beyond minimum wage retail work. I transferred to a different university and completed my computer science degree with a 3.9 GPA. The experience had taught me valuable lessons about documentation, legal strategy, and the importance of having resources available when life gets complicated. My senior project on digital evidence authentication was published in a cybersecurity journal and led to job offers from 3 major tech companies. 2 years after the charges were dropped, I was hired as a senior security analyst at CyberGuard Solutions for $112,000 annually plus equity options. My expertise in digital forensics, gained through defending myself against fabricated evidence, made me exceptionally valuable in a field where understanding both attack and defense methodologies is crucial. Dating became easier once I moved to a different city where people didn't know my story. I met Lisa, a fellow software developer, at a professional conference. She appreciated my analytical approach to problems and my systematic way of handling complex situations. When I eventually told her about the false accusations, her response was exactly what I needed. "Show me the evidence." After reviewing my documentation and the case outcome, she understood that I'd been the victim, not the perpetrator. 3 years later, I received an unexpected message from Megan informing me that Amy had been arrested again, this time for making false accusations against a coworker at her retail job. The pattern of behavior that had destroyed my life was continuing, but this time there was a documented history that made her claims immediately suspect. The charges against her victim were dropped within weeks, and Amy faced enhanced penalties as a repeat offender. Steve reached out once to apologize for not believing me initially, and for not checking his security camera footage sooner. I appreciated the gesture, but it couldn't undo the 9 months of hell his family had put me through. "I should have known something was wrong when Amy's story kept changing," he admitted. "I should have trusted my instincts instead of letting Diane convince me to support her lies." Today I'm 28 years old with a 6-figure salary, equity in a growing tech company, and a relationship built on mutual respect and trust. I own a condo in a city where nobody knows my history, and I've built a new life that isn't defined by what Amy tried to do to me. The experience taught me that systematic preparation, professional competence, and strategic thinking can overcome even the most devastating false accusations. Amy, now 22, still lives with her mother in the same small town where she destroyed my reputation. Her second conviction for false accusations made national news in criminal justice reform circles, highlighting the need for serious consequences for evidence fabrication. Her employment prospects remain limited to jobs that don't require background checks, and her social media presence shows someone still unwilling to take responsibility for the damage she caused. Sometimes I think about how different things might have been if I hadn't been so systematic about documenting her inappropriate behavior, or if I hadn't had the resources to hire competent legal representation. Without the technical knowledge to identify fabricated digital evidence, or the financial resources to mount a proper defense, I might be sitting in prison right now for something I never did. The most important lesson from this experience is that you never know when life will require you to defend everything you've worked for. Having documentation systems, financial resources, and professional competence isn't paranoid. It's essential preparation for the inevitable moments when other people's malicious behavior threatens everything you've built. Amy learned that false accusations have serious consequences when the target has the resources to fight back systematically. Her family learned that enabling lies and rushing to judgment can destroy relationships and financial security. And I learned that sometimes the most satisfying victory isn't revenge. It's simply removing yourself from toxic people and building a better life without them. They got exactly what they deserved, consequences proportional to the damage they tried to cause. And I got something better. The knowledge that I could survive the worst kind of false accusation and emerge stronger, more successful, and completely free from people who never deserved to be in my life in the first place.